Welcome to Fieros' story time with me, Fieros Reborn, on the channel Fieros Reborn. Welcome here. Carrying on with the story. No idea where I am in the... Oh, yes, I do know where I am in the story. We were about to do a bit about the time I went round Slough telling people that I was God. The time I went round Slough proclaiming I was God. Deepak Chopra inspired. We're all God. Why don't you talk to me? I do talk to you. I pray every day. Sorry, I'm reading this from here. I pray every day. You God. No, I'm not God. Am I God? I went round Slough telling people that I was God today. Those are little notes. That's obviously incoherent. But those are... that's fine. Right. So, I don't know how to explain this one for normal people to understand. So I'm just going to explain it how I understood it at the time, which was I was God. I was God. I was in touch with God. I was a living manifestation of God, briefly. And I thought I'd test it out. So I told people on the street and in a shop, and there was this guy on the phone at the till who, let me say that again because I lost the sense of it halfway through that sentence. There's a guy who was on the phone at the till in the shop that I went into, and I went up to him and I said, "You're God." No, I went up to him and I said, "I'm God." And he was on the phone and he was like, "Just hold on a minute, because there's a guy here who says he's God and I want to pay attention to him." So he spoke to me and I said, I'm God. And he said, "Oh, really? You're God?" And I said, "Yeah, why don't you talk to me?" And he's like, "I do talk to you. I pray every day." And I was like, "No, you don't. Why don't you acknowledge me in your heart? I am God. You know I'm God." And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know." And then there was another guy who was the manager of the shop. And I went up to him and I spoke to him and I said the same thing. I said, "I'm God." And he said, "You're God." And I went, "Yeah, I'm God." And he went, "You're God." And I went, "Yeah, I know. I am God." And he went, You God." And I went, "Yeah." Yeah. And I kind of... I freaked myself out a little bit because part of me was just testing it out to see if I really was God or not. And then he was saying that I was. And I was like, okay. Didn't expect confirmation that quickly. And then... and so I went, okay, yeah, this is freaking me out now. So I went back out of the shop, and then I came home and I told people at home that I had been round Slough telling people that I was God today, and everyone freaked out even more. So the first thing that freaked out my parents was when I told my mum that I'd been meditating in a forest in Reading and that I'd fallen asleep, and when I woke up I had decided, or I'd been told by the universe, that I needed to go to New York. And my mum freaked out. She just went like this, and we got in from the car as we were driving home, and I told her, and she got out of the car and she just put her head down and just sort of walked in, really in some kind of strange denial thing, like, "I can't believe this is happening. I'm not experiencing this. I'm pretending this is happening. Pretending this isn't happening." Whatever. So she freaked out and just didn't say anything, basically, and it makes me angry that these people didn't take me seriously or just denied me, whatever. Next part says sanctuaries. Oh God, sanctuaries. I love to find sanctuaries. When I was younger, I would dream of finding daydream. I would daydream of finding a special little place, like this place described in Joseph Campbell's Lord of the Flies. It was a special place where Simon, the spiritual character, would go to rest and be peaceful. I also wanted to find a place that was really high, so that I could sit and look down on the world. I haven't really found that place. I've stopped searching for it too. I did find somewhere that matches that criteria, and I keep forgetting where it is. And then I remember where it is, and I go, I must remember where it is. This is like a high place where I can be up high and look out on things and be in the nature. Ah, I remember it now. Yeah, okay, it's on the Jubilee River path. Okay, so I have found a high place. But during my adventures into finding no places, I gotta explain that in a second. During my adventures into finding no places, I came across many cool little sanctuaries. Man. One in particular down by the bus station in Slough, which is no longer there because they knocked that bus station down and replaced it with a new one, which doesn't have a special little sanctuary there. I'm thinking of possibly going there again now, it says. But somehow they've lost their attraction. I think you have to be in a certain mood of exploration and discovery to find them exciting, and I'm just not interested at that at the moment. Sorry. However, I could go and photograph all the no places that I've been to and make a map of them. Ooh, I could go to that bridge in Maidenhead and take photos. Yeah, what a great idea. I came across this absolutely amazing no place in Maidenhead. I was out on a mission of discovery, and I went looking around down by a bridge in downtown Maidenhead. I was not at all expecting to find what I did, however. I found an archaeological find of the millennium. Some people had set up a little fucking house underneath this bridge. It had everything. It had a double bed made out of duvets. It had an area for cigarettes, a remote control car. It was absolutely fascinating. And then I say here you can see pictures of it in the photograph section of the book. That does not exist. I couldn't believe that people were actually living under there full time, although they weren't actually there at all when I was there. I'd picked up a metal bar I'd found just in case I was attacked. I don't remember that, actually. Okay. But my goodness, what a find. I was so excited I went outside to document my findings in my little book of madness. And now I'm off out to find it again. Okay. So, so let me tell you about that. Ish. Or not. Wow, this part is harder than I thought it would be to talk about. Oh. Oh man. I don't know why it's so hard to talk about. I mean, I've spoken about it before, loads. There's just so much information in my mind to pick out things to say. Oh, telling them I was God, yeah. Sanctuaries, I love to find sanctuaries. Yeah, I suppose I really wanted to find sanctuaries overall to escape the tyranny of my family environment, my parents. So I wanted to find places anywhere that I could be where there was no one to bug me and to stress me out and hound me and call me ill and say everything I was doing was a symptom of madness and be constantly worried about me all the time and chasing me around the house and stuff. Where I could just be by myself and rest, basically. And I couldn't rest at my house, and I didn't have any friends who were. My friends kind of disowned me during that time. they just didn't want the mad Ross to be around their house. One friend was particularly good. He let me stay around his a few times. But I also didn't feel completely comfortable with being around him because he had some sexual issue. I don't think he fancied me. He did fancy me. Oh, God. This is making me wonder why would I bother doing these videos? Because it's just dragging me down. I'm going to stick this hour through, even if I just end up doing it in silence. Sorry about that if you get bored, but I'm going to stick through this hour because it's a commitment, isn't it? It'd be like if I was in a therapy session. Ow. So okay, well, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the story because I feel like we've covered a lot of ground already, and well, it's easier to do the stuff that we've already done for a start. You know, it's easier to go back and redo stuff, and I would like to get a sense of a through line through the whole thing because what I have noticed tends to happen is the more I go over the story, the more coherent it becomes and the more streamlined it becomes. Like I get less distracted and cut hooked up on little bits, and I'm able to tell it more straightforwardly. So let's do that because I'm getting bogged down in this new part. So I'll go back and we'll move it forward slowly. I suppose it's heavy, this part, really heavy. Okay, so I was going out with a girl who we are calling Mrs. A. I was at secondary school when I met her. I first met her in year 8, I believe. She was from South Africa. She came over from South Africa to live in England because the stuff wasn't very nice in South Africa at that time, and that her parents wanted to come over here to have a better life situation and better prospects because there was a lot of violence and stuff. At that time, it was 1988 when they came, and I missed that person. Still, I had a dream about her 2 days ago, 3 days ago, where I woke up and she was about to have sex with me, which is a dream I have not ever had, and she was really, really real in that dream. Like, really felt like she was right there, and I woke up thinking she was actually on me. So my dream buddy is getting closer to getting his satisfaction from that relationship, from that person, because I've mentioned in previous talks about my dream buddy, he's never quite managed to resolve his relationship with her. Yeah, and in the dreams, that used to be a case of she was always away, or she comes and then she teases me in a way, or she always runs away, or it doesn't happen at the last minute, or there's some kind of problem gets in the way, or she's got a boyfriend, or she just I'm sat there with her parents waiting for her to come home and she never comes home, or we have a chat and then she still ends up going away, or we have a kiss and then she still ends up going away, and there's always a feeling of tension in those dreams. So But then I mentioned I've had some different dreams about her, which is where we were actually getting married, and there was only a little bit of kind of relationship conflict, but it wasn't tension in the sense that we were actually together. Whereas in all the other dreams, it was an unrequited situation where I wanted her to come back and she never came back, or I wanted her to be with me and she would never quite be with me. She would always be there ish and then not, or she'd sort of be like there. About a quarter of her emotional stuff would be there, so she would be tempting me in a way. She would be dangling a little bait back to say that she is still interested in a way, but then she would always run away and take it away from me again. And then, as I said, I mentioned that I had this other dream more recently where we were actually married. And the situation was more like at a dinner table, a long table, but we were opposite or together rather than being at opposite ends of the table. We were like either like facing each other opposite or sat side by side at the head of the table. So I feel more like sat at the head of the table together. There was a sense of us having a slight argument or discussion that wasn't positive, but the fact that we were actually together and it was sanctioned that we were together, like it was the tone of that was that we were in a relationship. It might not have been a happy relationship, but we were actually together. And then the most recent one was where she was doing the whole thing of like coming towards me and away from me a bit, but it was mainly towards me, and I was trying to convince her for me to stay at her house. And she said, okay, just one night, but just one night. And then it didn't end with it all going wrong. It ended with her on top of me, kissing me, with us about to have sex. So that was quite a positive one overall. Yeah, it was very, very real. Like a lot of the time in the dream, I get the sense that she's not really there. She's only partly there. But this one, she was like right there, like almost as though she was real in real life. When I woke up, like physically 3D kind of thing. I thought, whoa. She was like a hologram kind of thing. I woke up and it was almost like there was a trace of her hologram there, and I was like, whoa, yeah. So that was good. Anyway, so I was with her. We got together in sixth form. Because I saw her distractedly looking into thin air or the mid distance like this, and I thought, I know where she's coming from. I know she's obviously troubled and going through some stuff, and I can relate to her, and I see myself in her, and I understand her. I get her, and so I suppose I started to pursue her. I don't know if it was like, did I say, right, that's it, I'm going to chase after Mrs. A, or was it just a natural progression that that was my behaviour, I suppose. I don't know whether I decided it or not. Like, did I decide that consciously to say this is the person I want to be with, or did I just follow my dick kind of thing? I don't know. I'd like to say that I decided, I had a thought about it and decided to go with that and made a choice. But I don't think I did. I mean, I don't know. I can't actually say. It's interesting, that, isn't it? Did I just kind of go with the flow and do whatever was happening, or did I consciously decide that I want to pursue this person? I doubt I would have said it in those ways. Would I have said, I fancy this person? I don't know. It's weird, like how much self-knowledge was available to me at that time. Was I able to understand that I fancied her? I knew I fancied her, obviously, but like, would I have been able to even say that to myself in my head? Don't know. Probably not, because I'd never fantasized about her. I was fantasizing about other girls when I was doing masturbation. Yeah. So that was difficult for me to comprehend how I hadn't formulated any conscious thoughts like about fancying this person. I'd had conscious thoughts about fancying two other people, or even three, but with this person, I just started pursuing her almost subconsciously. Like I just kind of, I don't know, it just started happening. I'd never thought about it first and then tried it. It was, Maybe I'm saying too much. Maybe I'm making too much up about it. But it was different because I even remember saying to her that one of the reasons that I couldn't really commit to the relationship fully or understand it fully was that I hadn't had the fantasy life of her. Whereas with the other girls who I fancied, I'd had this fantasy life of them and I knew I fancied them. And I was lusting after them. And then this Mrs. A, who I was with, I hadn't had the fantasy life. And we got together quite quickly without me having developed a fantasy life about her. And I would have liked to have had a fantasy life about her, I suppose, because then I would have known that I really fancied her and that I was going for it. Yeah. So something about that actually came up in the relationship as a reason why I was finding it difficult to understand my feelings, because I hadn't had a fantasy life about her. Weird, isn't it? Fantasy stuff. What you do when you daydream and stuff, how that is a reflection of what you want and things. I don't daydream enough. I should daydream more. Okay, well, we got together. There was a thing about we went round to someone's house and watched Pulp Fiction, and she bit me on the arm in a playful way, and I was like, no biting. No biting. Oh, man. No biting on the arm. Don't bite me. It's painful and I don't appreciate it. And I was not pleased with it. No biting. And I'd asked her about what she was thinking, and she said, the thoughts of a woman are a private thing, and my thoughts are private to me and stuff. And I said, come on, man, just tell me what you're thinking. What are you thinking? She was obviously thinking about me, and that's why I wanted to know. What are you thinking? Yeah. Okay. So we went out. I lost my virginity to her. I swear I've already said this in other videos, but let's do it again. I lost my virginity to her. We had sex 5 times, technically speaking, okay, but they were very short times. The first time was an abysmal performance on my part. I stuck my penis in her. I don't think I was even fully erect, to be fair. I don't think I was fully erect. Not as erect as I should be on a shagging. And just came within half a minute. 30 seconds. I think I went in, out, and that was it. And I just came, and I was so disappointed in myself. I was like, and I was ashamed. And it took me a while to get over that. But then we did it 4 more times. Each was progressively longer. I guess because I'd been desensitized by that point. But it's the first time I had sex, and I can't even remember it being an amazing feeling. It just must have been too overwhelming for me. I mean, I could masturbate for a hell of a lot longer than that, but first time I had sex, just knocked me out straight away. Just boop. Wow, that was intense. Yeah, but she was quite good about it. She didn't bring it up very much. She tried to give me a blowjob one time, and that was the only time in our whole relationship, and she kind of just didn't like it. And that might have been that I hadn't washed properly, not knowing about these things at that age, that maybe I hadn't. And also I wasn't shaved either at that time, because I didn't really think about that. So it's not the nicest of experiences if you haven't washed properly and if you've got loads of hair on your penis. For a girl to give you a blowjob, or for anyone to give you a blowjob for that matter, male or female or chimpanzee. Male or female or chimpanzee, as though you can't have male or female chimpanzees. Let's stop that discussion right there. Right, so she didn't like blowjobs, and I never got one from her since. I mean, like, since that point in the relationship, that was it. No more blowjobs, which sucked. It didn't suck, actually. It blew. It didn't blow either. It was a neutral, no wind going in either direction. It was just a calm, still day when neither no suck jobs nor blowjobs were going on. It was a Hoover set to nothingness. It was non-turned on. Wasn't turned on. God. Mm. One time we had sex and the cat was in the room, and and she suddenly realised, and I suddenly realised, and we were like, ah, and she was like, Ross, man, I can't have sex with the cat in the room. I was like, oh, who cares? She's not looking. And so we had to get the cat out of the room to carry on, and that we were doing it in my mum and dad's bedroom at that point. Oh yes, I think we did have sex in every room in the house. That was some kind of thing that I just like a goal that I wanted to have sex in every room in the house, apart from in the downstairs bathroom. I don't think we did it in there. But yeah, I just wanted to have sex in every room in the house as a little goal. We had sex outside in the back garden one time when we came home drunk from somewhere. That was all right. I believe we had sex in the car as well. I used to drive her. What did I used to do? I used to drive around to hers in my Rover 25, green Rover 25, that I got given for my 18th birthday from my grandmother on my mother's side. I used to drive around to hers in that. It used to take me about 10, 15, 20 minutes max. I used to burn it down. She used to live in Britwell, so I used to burn it down, whatever roads there are to get to there. I used to like visiting her there. I liked her house. It was different to ours. There was a nice feeling there. Different smells as well. You know, it's interesting how smells play a part in relationships, don't they? But yeah, the smell of her house was of a certain smell because of the air fresheners and stuff that her mum used, and then her dad used to smoke as well. So there was like kind of mingling of air freshener and smoke, which like I attuned to being the signature smell for their house. And I liked their parents. I mean, I liked her mum. I liked her brother. Her dad was a bit standoffish, and I felt like I was constantly in trouble with the dad. I felt like I was going to get told off at any minute. I don't think I ever actually did get told off. I just don't think I ever. He never approved of me in some way, or he never wanted to sort of be too friendly towards me while I was in the relationship with her. Afterwards and later on, he's a lovely guy. I haven't seen them for ages. I saw her mum a few years ago. No, 2 years ago, because she still works in Windsor. I don't know if she still does anymore, but yeah, she's pretty much the same. Although a little bit more jittery now than she used to be, which is disturbing. Mm. But yeah, they're lovely people. Good sense of humour, kind-hearted, good-natured. And he stopped smoking as well. Her dad stopped smoking, so that was good. It was quite an intense relationship, her and I. There was always some kind of drama going on. And a particularly annoying part was, I think it was my dad's birthday party that I was playing in my band for a little gig for one of my dad's birthday parties, and she and one of our mutual friends was supposed to be coming to watch me play, and she was saying, "Oh, I'm still getting ready." And it was like 2 hours later, and she's like, "Oh, I'm still getting ready," and I was getting really pissed off because she was supposed to come, and I felt like she was bailing on me without telling me that she was just going to bail on me, and she didn't end up coming that night, and I was really pissed off, and I threw all the energy of that anger into my performance in the guitar playing, and that kind of worked, to be fair. But I mean, in hindsight, it was just a teenage little drama thing. You know, if that happened today, I'd be much more mature about it. I'd just be like, eh. But at the time, it was like, oh no, she's not coming, so she doesn't love me, and the relationship is over, and blah blah blah. Shut up, you idiot. Yeah. So it was very silly. What else? Oh, well, we used to have trouble between us about how much sex we were having, because we were always having sex, and we felt like it was probably bad, the amount of sex that we were having, because I think we wanted the relationship to be more about more than just sex, and it was about more than just sex. But there, we were kind of addicted. We couldn't stop ourselves from having sex, and and that was annoying because we could never say, right, we're not going to do it. It would just happen all the time, to the point where it was like we couldn't get other things done that we were supposed to be doing. So we were supposed to be doing a homework session, whatever, and we just ended up having sex. And pardon me. And it was also annoying because we were having the sensation that we didn't have enough willpower to stop ourselves, so it felt out of control. And we were like, we can't. We don't seem to be in control of our relationship. We're not really able to kind of manage ourselves, and it felt like it just felt. Those farts are starting to smell now. It just felt bad. Like it felt like it had a sickness element to it. Like there was a pain around it. That it was pleasurable to have the sex, but there's also a pain aspect to it. Like it was an addiction. It was a painful, being drawn to each other to have the sex was subtly painful, and then sometimes more painful than, as in like emotionally painful, because it had the sensation of doing something you didn't necessarily want to do consciously, but that you were being drawn towards from the feelings in your body. So that came up and down, as in we went through these phases where we're like, we are having too much sex, or we shouldn't be having so much sex, and maybe there was something about shame or guilt in there as well, like because it was a new relationship, and sex was new for both of us. We both lost our virginities to each other, and it was just a bit out of control. Yeah, but that was some of it. The sex was really lovely, of course. Mutual masturbation was pretty nice. We used to nap together. I used to come home from school, and we used to drive home at lunchtime and have sex, and then come back, to school. Or I'd drop her off at mine. She'd have a nap while I go back to school for the last lesson of the day, and then go back to her and stuff. And we both did art. We both did English, so we had a lot in common. We had an ongoing argument about who was better at art, basically, and also an ongoing argument about the style of art. I thought that my style of art was better because I wasn't using computer processing, right? But she had this way of doing computer processing on her work where she would make montages using photographs and other pieces of her own work, and she'd use the Photoshop to put together imagery, and then what she would do is she'd print it out on a big sheet, and then she'd paint and put texture and do pastels and stuff over the top of it. And I would say at that time that was cheating, because she wasn't using her own drawing skills. She was basically kind of tracing over something that was already there, and I said it was cheating. Now, nowadays, who gives a fuck? Who gives a toss? It doesn't matter. But at that time, I was like, it's cheating, because yeah. And what does that mean anyway? Cheating? What do you mean cheating? So yeah, whatever. But we had this argument going on because she used the computer to help her. I thought it was cheating. I thought it was worse. Must be worse, therefore. Must be worse. Yeah, I was so arrogant. I used to go out to her house. She had a really thin mattress on her bed, which was uncomfortable for having sex in. And we didn't really have much sex when we were around hers because we didn't want to annoy her parents. Her parents' room was right next door to hers, and they weren't really happy with us having sex, I don't think. But we did end up having sex when I stayed over there, and when her parents were out, and we used to have sex mainly in the living room, to be fair. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame though that there was such an addictive component to that relationship, because that would have been quite a good relationship overall. I mean, it was quite a good relationship overall. It's just a shame that I was so young and therefore not able to be mature about things, basically. And I was so jealous. Jealousy was a major thing of my um, emotional life. I was jealous of her. I was jealous of her with other guys. Like, I was also always checking out other girls with a view to potentially do something or whatever. And I was just a dick, basically. I was always saying this girl's hot and that girl's hot and whatever. And so it was just there was the immaturity of the teenage relationship about it as well, which is annoying because she's a great person, and it would have been nice if I could have been with her at a less immature and dickish age. But wow, that's the situation, isn't it? I'm also aware that I don't think I've ever met anyone who's as kind and intelligent as her. With as good a sense of humour as her to match with me. So there's still some issue there that I am still looking out for her, or hoping to find someone who is her or who is better than her in a way. So, but what does that say? It might just say that it means I haven't let it go fully. Yeah, I feel like I could talk about her for ages. But we broke up, which happened while I was on holiday in America at Disney World and Universal Studios in Florida, and that other thing called Epcot, which is basically just giant golf balls. Yeah. Right. So this part of the story was I was in America on a holiday. She was starting university at UCL. She was living in Gower Street, on the top floor, which I think was the third floor, but maybe more. Either definitely third floor, could have been fifth floor to be fair. It felt really high up, loads of stairs to go up, and no elevator. Yeah. So I helped her put her stuff into the place. When she first got into her room, she had to share a room with this other girl, who I will say her name. Her name was Noor. Noor, and she was a Muslim girl, but she didn't wear a hijab or anything. She was more of a westernized. I'm sounding like an arsehole. Let's stop the conversation right there. Her name was Noor, right? She was Muslim. Let's leave it at that. And Mrs. A said that she probably wouldn't be best of friends with Noor. And at that time, I was like, what do you mean? No, sure you can. And Mrs. A was said, no, I just know. I just know. When you just can tell something, you're going to you'll be able to get along with them fairly well, but you're not going to be the best friends with them. You just know that something is not right between you as friends. And I was like, no, 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 no. I had that stupid, I can only think of it as a middle class idiocy, which is where there's nothing really authentic. It's part of the thing is to smooth over social interactions and make sure that everyone likes each other and everyone is nice to each other and everyone is polite and everything will always go well, things like that. Whereas the authenticity of the situation might be completely different, which is what she was feeling, was that she wasn't going to be good friends with her because she could just sense it, that there was something not compatible between them, and I didn't understand that because I was an idiot. Yeah. Oh god, this sucks so bad. Oh man. Right, and then so I left her to get on with it and went on this holiday that I didn't really want to go on, but I had to go on because it was a family thing and whatever. I didn't really have any choices in the family at that time. It was just everyone did what the family was doing. And to be fair, I probably campaigned to go to Disney World previously, because who doesn't want to go to Disney World? I wanted to go to Disney World when I was a kid. I did go when I was really young, but not old enough to remember much about it. And then my gran had got this timeshare in Florida, so that we could spend time there and go to the different things. So we hired a car while we were there. This is back when my mum and dad were still together, and before my life was fucked as well, I should say. Yeah. So I went on a holiday, was missing Mrs. A, who was back at home. Who was not at home, sorry, she was at uni, gradually drifting away from me, and then playing strip poker and having sex with this guy called Alan. Yeah. Who incidentally also did music and recorded music on his little computer there and stuff. And yeah, and at the same time, my band started to go down the drain as well, because the girl who I'd been writing music with since I was 16 she was leaving. She left the band, and around that same time, I was having a phone conversation with my band mentor guy, who was the guy who ran the studio that we used to rehearse at. I was having a conversation on the phone with him, saying, is there anything I can do to, what would you do in this situation to try and convince my bandmate to come back? And he basically said something like, well, there's nothing you can actually do, because it's her choice, and if you've done everything you can by making allowances or changing that direction, and then you feel like you can't do anything more, then you just kind of got to let her go and start again, or carry on as a three-piece or whatever. So I was like, oh, fuck. Because it wasn't just the fact of her leaving the band, it was also a symbolic leaving of our friendship as well. That the friendship had disintegrated as well, because one of the main features of our friendship had always been the music making. Not always, but it was a strong feature from the age of like 15 onwards, was music between us. Going around to hers, writing songs together. Yeah, it was a big thing for me. And then being in a band together as well was a big thing for me. Because I really loved that person. I really loved her deeply. I'd known her since I was 9 years old, and we'd said that we were going to marry each other, and I'd loved her as a person in my life, as a friend, for years. And then she was leaving the band. It was like she was abandoning me, leaving me, quitting the friendship. I mean, the friendship was never very good after that point. We'd see each other every now and again. Yeah, but it was really sad, because double whammy. As I say, I was sitting on the steps of this Gower Street student accommodation building, like, I don't know, 4th or 5th floor or whatever it was, having this phone conversation with my band mentor, and then got off the phone to that, and I went into the kitchen on that top floor, or 4th floor or whatever, and Mrs. A was there with Alan. I really should give her real name, but I don't feel quite right to say her name yet. She was there with Alan, and I'd come in, and she was kind of flirting with Alan, and then flirting with me as well, or she was being like she would be with me, but with Alan. And I was like, she fancies him, or they're together, or they do stuff, or she definitely fancies him. She's got a thing for him. There's a connection there. I can see that, obviously, because she's treating him in the same way that she would treat me. You know, jokey, flirty, bantery, with a sexual undertone, with a romantic undertone. So I was like, fuck's sake. And I can't remember exactly how I questioned her, but I questioned her on it. Like, I remember certainly asking her the question: have you slept together? Have you had sex? Have you kissed him? And she said yes. And I felt betrayed. I felt angry. I felt hurt as well. Betrayed is a good word. I felt betrayed because she hadn't told me up front. She just kind of waited for me to grill her on it, which was shit. And it wasn't like her as well. She was a very honest person usually. So I felt betrayed in that sense, and I also felt like I'd been made a fool out of. Like, I'd even hung out with those guys together, and we did some drinking games or whatever. I think, yeah, one time, and I'd hung out with them, and I just felt like you'd just been taking the piss. You know, this stuff has been going on behind my back, and you've just not told me. So I felt kind of mad, like, why have I even bothered? You know, I've come all this way, and I've been trying to make this work, and you've been doing this behind my back, and you haven't told me. So I was pretty pissed off. But I was more hurt, really. I felt hurt, shame, betrayal, some anger, but it's hard to say. It was more of like a upset feeling, like crushing feeling, yeah. And I went out to get some noodles because I'd associated noodles with a comfort food since Reading Festival, because I thought those noodles were great at Reading Festival. Yeah, and then so I went and got these noodles, sat outside in the rain, the drizzle, eating the noodles, and they were kind of comforting. I don't think I've ever had a better thing of noodles, to be fair, because those noodles were meaningful noodles. They were like, you are the noodles of my life, because I don't have a girlfriend right now. This is the end of the girlfriend is happening right now. So you noodles can be my replacement. You are my girlfriend. Yeah. So I sat on that bench and I was like, And it was like, well, partly there was a sense of openness as well, because I was now in this London place. It's almost peaceful if I think about it. It was peaceful because I guess I was in shock. My brain was in shock. I didn't have much thinking going on. I was just went out, ordered these noodles from a little Chinese kiosk place or little restaurant thing, sat on a bench and was just like in shock. But also there's a sense of peace in the background somehow. Like, you got these neon lights around and there's drizzle coming down. I'm eating these noodles and a bit of wind blowing and stuff out of my arse. No, but wind blowing in the background and London cars, and it's more like an ambient feeling than anything else. So I was more aware of the surroundings than usual. And yeah, but at the same time, there's a bleakness to it because obviously of the depressing feeling. There was a depressing feeling as well. So although there was like this stuff that in a way is very nice, it felt very Blade Runnery moment, right? Yeah, yeah, kind of bleak but beautiful bleakness. Yeah, yeah, it's very Blade Runnery, that moment. Yeah. That's really, yeah, it was really Blade Runnery. Fine. The first Blade Runner. Yeah. Sat there eating noodles. Because he goes to eat noodles as well. It was a very Blade Runnery moment. Very Blade Runnery. I should watch Blade Runner again. Okay. Yeah, so we had the noodle moment. I was like, I think I wrote some lyrics then and there. I used to write lyrics all the time. I can't remember where I would have written them. I think I wrote them on a pad of paper. like I used like an A4 lined paper. I don't know. Maybe I don't know when I wrote them. But I wrote some lyrics very soon after that point. And I also went out and went to a club. It was like a students' union club thing. The ULU, University of London Union Club, for some dancing with another friend of mine who also went to UCL, who was actually the other girl who I majorly fancied, strangely enough. Never thought about that. That was actually the case. Yeah. So, I mentioned earlier on about I had a couple of girls who I had this fantasy life about. Well, one of them, Mrs. S, was my teenage, like, unrequited fantasy love, who I would always sit next to her in class whenever I could. Oh, God, I'm such a weenus. And I'd call her up after school and talk to her for as long as possible. And I used to think that the longer I could spend on the phone to her, the better that was the better. It showed that she liked me or something. Yeah, that's what it was. The longer I could be on the phone to her, it showed that she liked me. And I used to get her little presents and stuff. Oh, God. We almost kissed one time, but it didn't happen because she had bad breath and bad armpit odor. Oh, that was a party, school party thing at a friend's house. Oh, man. Yeah. So I didn't even realise that. Yeah, that was so strange that those two girls, Mrs. A and Mrs. S, one of them was the girlfriend, and the other one was the one who I originally wanted to be my girlfriend, who hadn't bloody reciprocated it. So in a way, I felt like Mrs. A was sort of second place as well, and there was always drama between Mrs. Me. Sorry, there was always drama being caused between me and Mrs. A because I kept flirting with Mrs. S, the other girl who I fantasized about all the time, and I kept flirting with her, and we had drama together, and I would be flirting with her behind Mrs. A's back, and then I'd feel guilty about the fact I'd been flirting with Mrs. S, and oh God, teenage dramas, dramas, drama. Like, we'd always be spanking each other's bottoms. Yeah, and and coming up very close to each other and touching and things. There was a lot of touching between us, mainly me between her, but she liked it, and yeah, it was quite a frisky thing. We were always touching each other, and yeah, maybe hugs and stuff as well. I can't remember, but she was the one who I wanted to be with, and then I ended up with Mrs. A because she would take me, and Mrs. S wouldn't have me because she had the stupid no boyfriend rule at school. Yeah, which was stupid. Yeah, but she was the one who I wanted to be with. But then I also fancied Mrs. A as well. However, I again couldn't match up who did I really want to be with. I couldn't actually even make that decision in my mind. I couldn't understand my feelings, man. I could not understand what my feelings were telling me and what I wanted. And yeah, oh God, teenage dramas, man, teenage dramas. Yeah, so silly now. Okay, so Mrs. A cheated on me. I found out. I went and got some noodles. I went and do some dancing with Mrs. S, but that wasn't going anywhere still. And I wasn't in the mood because I was depressed, and I tried to force it and fake it, and I just didn't. It wasn't going anywhere, and I can barely even remember that. It feels very dark, those memories, especially that memory of being in the club. It just feels really dark. Like, am I even really there? Am I really present? Am I really connected to myself at that time? I guess I was just in a bit of a state. Yeah, so whatever, that relationship ended. We met up afterwards a couple of times. Once I remember meeting up with her at KFC in Uxbridge and just chatting about stuff. And every time we used to meet up, I would always be hoping that we could get things back together. That if I could just be funny, or if I could just somehow reignite the spark between us, that she would come back to me. And she never did, and it was never the same. And it was like, we met up quite a few times, loads of times actually, after the relationship ended. Always with me hoping and trying to get back with her, and it never happened. And I'm still talking about her today. Yeah, wow. Right. Okay. I have to move the story on. So I got this job working at the Outback Steakhouse. I met this guy there. He fancied me. He pursued me. I relented and went, okay, fine. Let's be gay then. And so I was gay for a while. I realised I didn't like it. I realised that this person was a dick, and he was manipulative and controlling and abusive and scared me and trapped me and isolated me from my friends and my family, and I was depressed with him, and he was being financially abusive as well. I felt anxious around him. I didn't want to be with him anymore. I broke up with him while being at uni as well, I forgot to mention, and being extremely active at uni in terms of the activities I was doing, the campaigns. God. And I think I'm just going to leave the video in silence for a bit at the end of this now, because I'm stuck. I've talked about the same things that I always talk about, and I haven't moved the story forward. It's like I try and tell it in a quick way and just summarize it, and I just get stuck telling the story of Mrs. A again and again and again. Maybe I should just do this. This is what Fieros' story time is going to be. It's going to be Mrs. A until I no longer need to talk about the fucking Mrs. A story ever again. And then I can move it on to Mr. B, and we can do it all. Oh, God, why is this taking so long? Why can't I just sort of say, okay, I went out with this girl, it didn't work out. I went out with this guy, that didn't work out. I went to America. I came home. I made my parents go mad. They got me sectioned. They put me in a hospital for nutters. I escaped the hospital once. I lived with my friend for a month to let my section run out. I went back to get my passport so that I could try and leave the country. I got sectioned again. Put in a different hospital. I escaped that hospital, but then I went back to the hospital out of free will, free choice, and stayed there. I did 72 days worth of being in a hospital on a psychiatric ward as a mental health inpatient. And then after that, I went on holiday to France for 3 weeks, pretty much immediately after coming out of hospital, feeling depressed as fuck, wanting to die, realizing that the medication that I was on had affected my muscles, in that I didn't have the same movement anymore. My neck was stiff, my fingers wouldn't work as well as they used to because of some of the motor control side effects that come with some of the antipsychotic drugs. Were like my words, I slurred my words a bit, and my neck was stiff, as I say, and my muscle movement wasn't as good as it was when I wasn't on the drugs, and therefore I couldn't play guitar as well. I'd lost a hell of a lot of my guitar abilities just because of the fact of being on the medication. And I was really depressed about the fact that my guitar abilities had gone down, because my guitar playing and songwriting was a major part of my life. And when I came out of hospital, it was just like I couldn't see how I was going to make my life work again. I was on holiday and thinking about what I wanted my life to be when I got back home, and I just wanted to get a job. Really, I wanted to get a job, and I wanted to return back to the life I had when I was 18, where I was in a band, where I had a job and a girlfriend, and things were going well. And what happened was I did actually end up getting a job, and I did actually end up getting the same job that I had when I was like 16, 17, which was at Legoland. Um, but I realised that I'd moved on in my life since then, and so although I wanted to get that new start, going back to work at Legoland when I was 23 years old after going through all this stuff was just wrong for me. It was a step backwards, and I felt like I'd gone back to being the age of 16 when I was actually the age of 23. So it felt like a backward step, even though it kind of was right at the same time as well, because it was easy and it wasn't too strenuous, and it gave me a bit of time to recover from depression in a way. But it wasn't right for me either, because I was around all these younger people, so they were like the 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and so I felt like I didn't fit in, and also I was depressed, and also I'd been through this massive trauma experience, so I couldn't really relate to the people who were there, and they started bullying me a little bit because I fancied this girl called Becca, and pardon me, and I told everyone, and I kind of became the butt of the joke about fancying Becca. And there was this one particular guy who was a team leader, and he was just a fucking dick. He was just a bullying, teasing guy, and he was younger than me, and he was just a dick, and I was already depressed anyway, and I just didn't fit in that role anymore. It was fine when I was 16, 17, 18, because everyone else was of that age, and now I came in, I was like 23, getting an easy job, but being depressed and not having confidence anymore, and feeling really shaky and not feeling happy and not feeling normal, having gone through all this crap. It's just wrong. But I did it for a few months, and then they made me work on outside in the cold, and I was always tired as well. I was depressed, and I was always sleepy, and I was trying to sleep out in the cold on one of these rides, photo booths, the photo booths where you get the photographs from. I was trying to like catch some sleep by going under the counter and like hiding in like a little part of the counter and like trying to go to sleep. I was so depressed, man. I was so depressed, and my body was fucked. I was drained. I was sleepy. I was recovering from a long-term traumatic experience, and I was fucked. And also, the manager was very not understanding. When I first got the job, I told him the terms and conditions. In a way, I was quite assertive about my needs, because I didn't have a choice but to be assertive. I said that I was only going to get a job part-time because I could only handle part-time, because I've just come out of hospital for mental health condition or whatever. And I felt quite shaky and traumatized. So that I was only going to do maximum 5 hours a day or 6 hours a day, I think it was, and 4 days a week, something like that. It was like I had given them specific terms because of my condition, and initially they honoured it, and then they started pressuring me. And when they started pressuring me too much, I was just like, okay, bollocks to this. You obviously don't actually care about like whether I am okay in the job. And I also said, like, don't put me on any rides where I'm going to be by myself. Don't put me in any booths where I'm going to be by myself. And that was one of my terms, because I knew that being by myself was not a good place for me to be in while I was depressed and traumatized, and it would make things worse. That it would be better if I always had someone else with me at all times. And they did. They kept sticking me on booths where I was by myself, which part of the fairness of being an employee there was that they had to treat me like everyone else. But that just meant that I was getting more and more depressed, because being by myself was one of the things that was adding to my depression. So anyway, I just ended up writing an email one time after they made me work by myself in the cold on one of these ride booths. And I just said, I'm not doing it anymore, because I don't want to work in freezing cold conditions by myself. And I just sent them that letter email and just didn't come in. I think they were pissed off at me for it, but fuck them, dicks. The manager was a dick. Fucking arrogant cunt. Such a cunt. He did not give a shit about anyone else other than himself. Not even his like second in command thing. He was just it was all about his bonuses and his money, whatever. And so we were only there as a function of him, if that makes sense. So he only ever saw us as like something that related to him rather than being individuals in our own right. And fuck him, he's just a dickhead. Yeah, so I left that job, and then I got a job as a guitar teacher at a local music charity, and I also did it as an independent freelance music guitar tutor. Sorry, I'm doing my own private lessons with people, which was better. That was better for sure. But I realise that again, I have completely skipped over the whole hospital part, which is probably the most important part to talk about, because that is the crux of the whole fucking story. It is the deepest part of the story, and I've not talked about it yet. Still not talked about it. So we're gonna have to keep going on this, because today all I spoke about was Mrs. A. Tried to talk a little bit about what led up to me going into hospital, but I couldn't get through that either. So it's going to be hard. It's going to take a long time, I'm afraid. I will get there eventually, though. And there's probably, that is why I keep going back to the Mrs. A stuff, because it's easier to talk about and it's familiar. And there was good feelings involved in that. So it's like a safety net. Because since that point in the situation of that story, like things go from good to bad to shit to weird to shit and weird to disastrous to horrifically awful. And then after that point, they gradually, over a period of time, start to get better. So I can see why my subconscious mind is trying to pull me back to keep talking about the easy stuff at the beginning. Okay, thanks.